Okay, today I'm going to talk about this. It's not a value stream, it's a swamp. And this is talking about what the difference is between software development and making cars. Now, the story of this starts in the 1970s when the USA had an energy crisis. Various political goings on in the Middle East meant that the price of oil went sky high. And this left car manufacturers in the United States exposed because the cars that they made were gas guzzlers, they weren't energy efficient. And it also turned out that they weren't actually very reliable in terms of their manufacturer, and they weren't very cheap. This left a gap in the market for manufacturers from other countries, especially Japan, who had models of engine which were much more fuel efficient and had put together ways of making cars that were more effective and so they could make them cheaper and they were more reliable. What started to happen in the 80s was that people who were researchers in management schools, business thinkers, started to go to Japan and look at the way that the Japanese made cars and write books about it, with a view to helping car manufacturers in the States change the way that they made cars, but also trying to extract from the way that these companies, especially Toyota, went about their business, principles that could be used for other kinds of manufacture. Now, some key ideas from Japanese car manufacture. Limiting the work in progress. So that is focusing on a small number of things, a small batch of things that moves through the factory at any given time, and focusing on having that thing move smoothly through the factory to the final point where it can be purchased, where some value is delivered back to the organization. Also, a crucial part of this idea was the reduction of waste. And waste here is a particular term for anything that's happening in the factory that isn't actually adding value to the things that are flowing through the factory on the production line. So things like inventory management, moving things around a warehouse, that's not actually helping with the production of the car. And that is regarded as waste. So the idea is to focus on things that are actually adding value to the thing that is flowing through the factory. And this notion of reducing waste, cutting off the fat, as if you will, is where the term lean comes from. Now, one crucial idea that is discussed a lot in the books by people like Womack and Jones is the idea of a value stream. So this is a set of tasks that have to be done to a product to add value to it before it can actually be released to market. And one of the crucial ideas of reducing waste in lean is to reduce the steps in this process, to reduce the time taken in steps in this process that don't actually add value. So this is one that I've roughed up myself. So if you think about at the bottom here, you have attaching a door, that might take 10 minutes, but then you have, for the next stage, you might have to wait for the part to arrive. And that time takes 15 minutes. And for all of that time while you're waiting, no actual value is being added to the product. Then when the handle's attached, you might have some kind of quality check because you've had problems with handles in the past. And that check, the time for the tester to arrive, time for somebody to inspect it, might take a long time. So if you had a way of making sure that you attach the handle without any problems, without the need for a quality check, then you could reduce all of that time when value isn't being added. And then when you move from attaching the handle to attaching the mirror, you might after that have some kind of random stoppage on the production line, which is nothing to do with any of the things here. It's to do with something else, either upstream in the production line or downstream in the production line. And if you can remove those kinds of things, then you can also take time out of the process, which isn't adding value. Now, towards the end of the 80s and into the 90s, people who were thinking about how to do software development management started to look at some of these ideas. So some of them very specifically and explicitly, as you can see here, lean software development, and some of them more kind of in a more kind of tangential way, like the people who developed Scrum. But this idea of the value stream, this idea that you can improve your software development process in some kind of way that is similar or analogous to Toyota and the way they make cars, is one of the ideas that's behind this kind of push towards lean and agile software development. But there's a problem. The things that Womack and Jones are looking at when they're looking at production lines in Japan are finished products. Womack and Jones don't see in the manufacture of those finished products any of the efforts that have been made to develop those products. And also in some of these things that we're looking at here, like washing machines and cars, the very idea of what that sort of thing is was effort that was put in nearly 100 years ago now. So like, you know, for cars, what a car was and what shape it should be and why people want to drive them, that's kind of effort that was put together and done in the States at the turn of the last century, you know, the 1920s. This is very different for a novel product that's been developed with software. So when people look at Lean and Toyota, what they're talking about really is how to essentially streamline a channel like this. So how do we kind of move things down a value stream faster so that we can keep adding value? But the thing that we're moving down that value stream, for Toyota, they know what that thing is and they know what the value is that needs to be added. So this is a good analogy for products, but for developing entirely new kinds of products, this isn't so useful. And this is the point that I'm trying to make. Software development is not a value stream. Software development is a value swamp. That is, that there are values there, but they're laying all over the place and we don't necessarily know what they are. And we also don't know what the steps are to connect them together. So we don't know what's in there. And we don't know if what's in there is valuable. So we have to understand that. We have to do something to try and understand what's there and how it's valuable. And even if we do start to understand what's there and how it's valuable, we have to do some work to get it out. What does that mean for software development? It means we need to dig our own value streams. So we actually need to do the work of connecting bits of value. So that's things that software can do with things that users want to do. We need to do the work of connecting those things together. That work hasn't been done for us 100 years ago, like it is with a car. And in order to do that work of connecting those things, we need to know where the value is. So just thinking here about Inigo Montoya and what he might think about that. What does that actually mean? Well, this looks scary, but is actually in some ways slightly a daunting thing. We need to understand who the stakeholders are. We need, for any particular area that we're developing software for, we need to explore who the users are, who the customers are, so that's who might actually pay us to develop this software, but also what other kinds of stakeholders there are. So for example, if we're doing software development for a bank, for some kind of application for a bank, we might have target users, people who might use this system, but we also have customers, people who are paying us to actually develop that system. But often in financial services, there are also other people who are neither customers nor users who are interested in what this piece of software is going to do. So in financial services, there are typically regulators. There might be other people who are worried about the security of the system. There might be other people who are worried about how it changes the risk profile of the organization. So there are lots of different stakeholders. And we have to start somehow to map who those stakeholders are and also understand to what degree are we going to pay attention to the values of these different stakeholders as we do our development. So I've said user research there, but really it's stakeholder research. So it's not just the users of the system, it's other stakeholders as well. What are their interests? What are their values? What are their tripwire, touch points? All sorts of things about understanding the stakeholders and the users. And once we've done that, then it's about doing some kind of usability testing with those users. And really, again, this means testing out ideas with those users and seeing how they respond to them. So this is not just about making sure that the call to action is obvious on a page. It's getting reactions back from stakeholders about ideas for values that might be delivered in this space. And then finally, because of that research that we've done, we need to start doing some digging. We need to start doing some earthworks that connect values together for people who are interested in this space. And that is working software. I'm an Agile coach, I'm a Scrum Master. One of the central principles of Agile is working software. And so what we want to be doing in this area is getting some prototype together. And that prototype is not going to look like a finished Toyota Corolla. It's going to look like something like this, where there are bits glued together and there are exposed bits of circuit board. Because the endeavor that we're involved in is not finessing an established value stream. The endeavor that we're involved in is actually putting together a value stream that doesn't already exist. If you can do that, if you can find some bits of value in the swamp that can be connected together and find some people who want those bits of value, then you get something which, harking back to Lean and Toyota, is recognized as an extremely important thing. And that's pull from the customers rather than push from the manufacturers. So one of the things that Toyota does with its car manufacture is it tries to manufacture cars at the rate that they're needed. So customers ask for cars, and those cars with the specifications that the customers ask for get made. When we're prototyping, if we can find a group of people who actually want the thing that we're developing, this changes dramatically the dynamic of what else we're going to explore and how we're going to explore it, which stakeholders we're going to take note of and to what degree. So if you can start to dig one ditch inside the swamp that somebody is interested in using to irrigate a field and grow some crops, that changes the dynamic of everything else that you do inside that space. So I'm just going to end here with a picture of an extremely successful swamp. Venice started out as a bunch of marshland on the edge of the Mediterranean that nobody really wanted to live in, and is by many people regarded as one of the most beautiful cities in the world. That's my name and my email address. I currently work for a company called Marvel Consulting, who are a fantastic bunch of people to work with, and I'd be interested to talk to you if you've got any software development problems to engage with or any swamps that need irrigating. Thanks very much.